The cold metal floor pressed against Dr. Elena Chen's knees as she carefully adjusted the microscopic calibration on her research terminal. Epsilon Prime's research facility hummed with the constant background noise of alien machinery, a sound she had learned to tune out over the past 3 years of enforced scientific labor. Her hands moved with practiced precision, each movement calculated and deliberate. To the Zortak overseers monitoring her work, she appeared to be just another human researcher, obedient, methodical, and entirely predictable. But Elena Chen was anything but predictable. The tracking chip embedded behind her ear pulsed softly, a constant reminder of the Zortak's absolute control. These neural trackers monitored every movement, every communication, every breath of the human researchers, or so the aliens believed. What the Zortak didn't know was that Elena had spent months developing a micro-interference pattern that could momentarily disrupt the tracking chip's signal. It was a dangerous game. Discovery would mean immediate termination or worse, but hope had become her most valuable resource. Her current research project involved analyzing quantum communication networks for the Zortak. On the surface, she appeared to be making standard progress, submitting reports that met the strict alien protocols. Beneath that facade, she was slowly mapping out the intricate weaknesses in their technological infrastructure. A shadow fell across her workstation. Senior Coordinator Zaxtal, a towering crystalline being with multiple articulated limbs, approached. Elena forced herself to remain calm, her breathing steady, her movements measured. "Progress report," the alien demanded, its translator producing a cold, mechanical voice. Elena turned, her data pad displaying carefully curated results. "Preliminary analysis shows promising developments in quantum signal resilience," she reported, her voice neutral and professional. Zaxtal's multiple eyes scanned the data, the translucent edges of its body shifting with what might have been curiosity or suspicion. After a moment that felt like an eternity, the alien gave a sharp gesture of acknowledgement and moved away. The moment passed, but Elena's heart raced beneath her control exterior. Each interaction was a carefully choreographed dance of survival and resistance. During her designated rest period, Elena made her way to the communal living quarters. The space was Spartan, rows of compact sleeping units, minimal personal storage, everything designed for maximum efficiency and minimum comfort. Here, humans from various backgrounds and professions coexisted, their individual stories of loss and resilience blending into a collective narrative of survival. Maria Rodriguez, a former network engineer, caught Elena's eye. They had developed a complex communication system using seemingly random patterns of movement and subtle hand gestures. A slight tilt of Elena's head, a particular way of adjusting her work vest, microscopic signals that would mean nothing to the Zortak surveillance systems. "Interesting data today," Maria said casually, sorting through nutrition packets. Elena understood the coded message. Something had been discovered, something important. As evening cycles began and the facility's lighting shifted to low-intensity mode, Elena retrieved a carefully hidden data crystal. It was smaller than a fingernail, engineered from materials that would appear completely innocuous to Zortak scanning technologies. The crystal contained fragments of an encrypted communication, a transmission that suggested something extraordinary. Preliminary analysis indicated a potential vulnerability in the Zortak's quantum communication network, not just a small weakness, but a fundamental flaw that could be exploited. Most humans would have been terrified by such a discovery. The risk of detection was astronomical. But Elena felt something else entirely, a spark of hope that had been dormant for far too long. She understood that resistance wasn't about grand, heroic moments. It was about patience, precision, understanding your enemy so completely that you could dismantle their systems from within. As the facility's night cycle began, Elena Chen allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The first step of something remarkable was about to begin. Little did the Zortak know, but the most dangerous weapon in their midst was not a weapon at all. It was human ingenuity, hope, and an unbreakable spirit of resilience. The maintenance tunnel was barely wide enough for Elena to crawl through, her movements calculated and silent. Condensation from ancient ventilation systems collected on her protective suit, each droplet a potential sound that could betray her position. She carried with her a modified communication device, a piece of technology that represented humanity's most sophisticated act of rebellion. 3 days had passed since she discovered the encrypted communication fragment. Now she was about to make contact with a network that most believed was nothing more than a desperate myth. Her destination was a junction point, a carefully chosen intersection of communication relays that the Zortak believed to be completely secure. The irony was not lost on Elena. The aliens' confidence in their technological supremacy would ultimately become their greatest weakness. She paused, pressing a specialized decryption module against a junction box. The device was a marvel of human engineering, constructed from repurposed research equipment and components smuggled piece by piece over months. Each component had been selected, modified, and integrated with mathematical precision. A soft vibration, a momentary flicker of light, then silence. Contact established. The first transmission came through in a burst of compressed data, a communication method developed to avoid detection. Elena's eyes scanned the initial information, her breath catching in her throat. It was real. The network was real. Fragments of messages began to coalesce, reports from human settlements across multiple star systems, coded information about Zortak patrol patterns, technical specifications of alien control systems. Each piece was a thread in a larger tapestry of resistance. Maria's voice crackled through a micro-earpiece, barely audible. "Confirm receipt. Do you have visual?" "Affirmative," Elena whispered, her hand hovering over the communication module. The network was more extensive than anyone had imagined. Humans in research facilities, mining colonies, agricultural zones, each group had found ways to communicate. Some used complex mathematical codes. Others relied on seemingly random physical gestures. A few had developed entire communication systems based on microscopic variations in work patterns. A new transmission caught Elena's attention. A detailed schematic of a Zortak control hub, annotated with potential vulnerabilities. The level of detail suggested an inside source, someone with direct access to alien infrastructure. She recognized the signature encryption. Dr. Marcus Rice, a physicist who had disappeared from a research facility 6 months ago. Most believed he had been terminated. Instead, he had gone deep underground. The transmission included more than just technical data. There were personal messages, brief, coded communications between separated families, promises of hope, signals of survival. Each message was a testament to human resilience. Suddenly, a warning pulse. Zortak scanning protocols were activating nearby. Elena's heart raced, but her training kept her movements precise and controlled. She began a carefully rehearsed shutdown sequence, each action designed to leave no trace of her intrusion. The communication module would appear to be nothing more than standard maintenance equipment if discovered. Years of working under alien surveillance had taught Elena the art of invisibility. As she prepared to extract herself from the maintenance tunnel, another transmission arrived. Short, cryptic, but filled with potential. Phase 1 initiation confirmed. Prepare for next stage. The message was from an origin point she couldn't trace, a ghost in the system, much like the resistance itself. Elena understood the risks. Discovery meant certain termination. The Zortak had no concept of mercy, no understanding of the human capacity for hope. To them, humans were resources to be managed, not sentient beings with dreams and determination. But something fundamental had changed. No longer were humans isolated and controlled. They were connected, organized, waiting. As she emerged from the maintenance tunnel, Elena Chen looked like just another researcher returning from a routine maintenance check. Her exterior was calm, professional, controlled. But behind her eyes burned a fire of possibility. The first true spark of resistance had been ignited. The Zortak would never see it coming. The research lab hummed with a nervous energy that only Alina and her closest colleagues could detect. To the Zortak overseers, it appeared to be another standard day of scientific research. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary was taking shape. Dr. Marcus Rice's encrypted schematics had provided more than just a glimpse into Zortak technology. They were a roadmap to potential liberation. Alina carefully manipulated a quantum interface, her fingers moving with surgical precision. Beside her, Dr. David Kim, the quantum computing specialist who had once worked on advanced AI systems, monitored a series of holographic displays. Each projection represented a different layer of their developing breakthrough. "The quantum interference pattern is stabilizing," David muttered, more to himself than to Alina. Their project was audacious. They were developing an adaptive algorithm capable of penetrating the Zortak's supposedly impenetrable communication networks. It wasn't just about breaking a code. It was about understanding and then exploiting the fundamental weaknesses in alien technological thinking. Daxtel, the senior coordinator, made his routine inspection. His crystalline body shifted with each movement, multiple eyes scanning the research environment. Alina kept her posture relaxed, her movements deliberate and professional. "Progress report," the alien demanded. Alina activated a prepared holographic display, showing carefully curated research data. "We're making significant advances in quantum signal resilience," she reported, her voice neutral and precise. The alien's translator produced a mechanical response. "Continued efficiency is expected." As Zaxtel moved away, David caught Alina's eye. A microscopic nod. They were closer than ever. The true breakthrough was hidden in the smallest details. Human researchers had discovered that the Zortak's technological superiority came with a critical flaw: a rigid, almost mathematical approach to communication and control. Their systems were brilliant but fundamentally predictable. Alina's algorithm was different. It was designed to be unpredictable, adaptive, capable of learning and changing in ways the Zortak could never anticipate. "We need to test the prototype," David whispered during their brief lunch period. The testing would be dangerous. Discovery meant immediate termination, or worse, but they had come too far to stop now. That evening, in the carefully monitored living quarters, a complex communication began. Hand gestures, subtle movements, a language developed under the eyes of their alien oppressors. Maria Rodriguez, the network engineer, had prepared a series of test points, vulnerable nodes in the Zortak communication infrastructure. Each point was a potential entry, a possible weakness to exploit. The first test was small, a minor disruption in a secondary communication relay. Nothing that would immediately raise suspicion. Hours passed. Tension built. Then, success. A microscopic breach. Barely noticeable, but it was a proof of concept that changed everything. The algorithm could adapt. It could learn. It could find paths through the Zortak's communication systems that the aliens themselves couldn't predict. "We've done it," David said quietly, his voice a mixture of excitement and terror. Alina understood the magnitude of their discovery. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was the first real weapon humanity had against their oppressors. The Zortak believed in absolute control. They saw humans as predictable, manageable, resources to be used and discarded. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As the facility's night cycle began, Alina carefully secured their research. Each piece of data was hidden, encrypted, distributed across multiple microscopic storage devices. She looked at the holographic display one last time. The algorithm pulsed with potential, a living, breathing manifestation of human ingenuity. The first stage of resistance had begun, and the Zortak would never see it coming. The moment arrived with calculated precision. 0-hour approach, marked only by a nearly imperceptible pulse in the communication network. Alina Chen stood in the research facility's central processing area, her external demeanor calm despite the storm of potential consequences brewing beneath the surface. Around her, the alien technology hummed with its usual mechanical rhythm, unaware of the fundamental change about to ripple through its systems. David Kim's voice came through her micro-earpiece, barely audible. Quantum disruption sequence initiated. First wave targeting secondary communication relays. Across multiple human-controlled research stations and mining colonies, carefully prepared teams waited. Each group held a piece of the larger plan, a distributed network of resistance that would strike simultaneously. The first signs were subtle. A momentary flicker in the holographic displays, a microsecond of static in the communication channels. To an untrained observer, nothing seemed amiss. But something fundamental was changing. Elena's adaptive algorithm began its work. Like a living organism, it moved through the Zortak communication infrastructure, probing, learning, adapting. Each pathway it discovered became a potential vector for disruption. In the mining colony on Proxima B, human workers who had appeared to be nothing more than routine laborers suddenly found their tracking chips malfunctioning. Communication barriers began to dissolve. Isolated groups discovered they were not alone. Senior Coordinator Zaxtol was the first to notice something was wrong. The crystalline being's multiple eyes shifted frantically across the primary communication interface. Data streams became unpredictable. Control protocols began to fragment. Anomaly detected. The alien's translator announced, its mechanical voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. Elena allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Uncertainty was a weapon more powerful than any physical technology. The quantum disruption spread like a carefully designed virus. But this was no simple technological attack. It was a calculated dismantling of the Zortak's sense of absolute control. Communication relays began to fail. Monitoring systems became unreliable. The sophisticated tracking networks that had maintained alien control for years started to crumble. Maria Rodriguez's voice cut through the communication channel. First colony reporting partial liberation. Tracking systems are down. Another voice joined. Then another. A chorus of possibilities emerging from years of suppressed hope. The Zortak response was predictable, and precisely what Elena had anticipated. Massive energy signals began to concentrate around key control points. The aliens were attempting to reassert their technological dominance. But humanity had prepared. Each disruption point was a carefully laid trap. As the Zortak concentrated their efforts on one area, another would suddenly become vulnerable. It was a dance of technological warfare that challenged everything the aliens understood about resistance. David's voice returned, excitement barely contained. We're seeing complete breakdown in 3 primary communication sectors. They can't adapt. And that was the key. The Zortak's technological superiority came from a fundamental weakness, an inability to truly think beyond their established protocols. Humans, by contrast, could adapt, could improvise, could turn limitations into strengths. A massive energy surge erupted from the primary control hub. Zaxtol's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been anger or fear. System compromise detected, the alien's translator announced. But the words rang hollow. For the first time, the Zortak were no longer in complete control. Elena watched as the first human colony transmission came through, unmonitored, uncontrolled. A voice of pure, unfiltered hope. "We are free," the transmission said. Simple words that carried the weight of generations. The quantum uprising had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The silence was deafening. Elena Chen stood in the makeshift command center, a converted research module now transformed into the heart of human resistance. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data from liberated colonies, each point of light representing a small victory against the Zortak Empire. 36 hours had passed since the initial quantum uprising. The aliens' response had been both predictable and devastating. Incoming transmission from Proxima B mining colony, Maria Rodriguez called out, her fingers dancing across a modified communication interface. They're under heavy assault. The Zortak had not taken their first major defeat lightly. Massive battleships now orbited human-controlled sectors, their energy signatures burning like angry stars against the black canvas of space. Dr. David Kim analyzed the strategic displays, his eyes moving rapidly between multiple data streams. "Their attack patterns are interesting," he muttered. "They're approaching this like a mathematical problem. Precise, calculated. But precision could be a weakness, and humanity was about to prove it." Elena approached the main communication console. The plan they had developed was audacious, perhaps even impossible. But impossible had never been a concept that stopped human innovation. "Activate secondary communication network," she commanded. A series of relay points came to life, not through traditional communication channels, but through a web of quantum-entangled communication nodes that the Zortak could not predict or track. Reports began to flood in. Human workers in mining colonies, researchers in remote stations, agricultural workers on terraformed planets. Each group had been preparing. Each group was now ready to act. The Zortak believed in absolute control. They saw humans as resources, manageable, predictable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first counterattack came from an unexpected source. A mining colony on the Outer Rim, previously thought to be completely under alien control, suddenly went dark to Zortak monitoring systems. Then another, and another. "They're creating interference zones," David explained, excitement building in his voice. "Each colony is becoming a blind spot in the Zortak's surveillance network." It wasn't just a technological battle. It was a psychological war. Senior Coordinator Zaxtel's communication attempts became increasingly frantic. The alien's crystalline body vibrated with what could only be described as confusion. For the first time, the Zortak faced an enemy that didn't follow expected patterns. Maria intercepted a high-priority alien communication. "They're calling this a systemic anomaly," she said, a hint of irony in her voice. "They can't comprehend that this is intentional." The human resistance had studied the Zortak for years. Their communication protocols, their battle strategies, their fundamental approach to control. And now, they were going to use that knowledge. A massive energy surge erupted near the Proxima B colony. The Zortak battleship began to lose its precise orbital positioning. Then another. The aliens' technology, so dependent on absolute mathematical precision, began to fail. "Quantum disruption at 73% effectiveness," David reported. Elena understood the true nature of their victory. This wasn't about destroying the Zortak. It was about proving that humanity could not be controlled, could not be reduced to a resource, could not be broken. The communication channels filled with messages of hope, small victories, strategic advances. Each transmission was a testament to human resilience. "We are not alone," one message read, simple words that carried the weight of generations of struggle. As the first wave of resistance reached its peak, Elena looked at the holographic displays. Each point of light represented more than a location. It represented hope. The turning point had arrived, and humanity was just beginning to show its true potential. The abandoned research station on Europa's frozen surface became the unlikely nerve center of human resistance. Salvaged equipment, modified alien technology, and pure human determination transformed the desolate facility into a beacon of hope. Elena Chen studied the latest strategic projections. The resistance had moved beyond simple survival. They were now actively dismantling the Zortak's control infrastructure, piece by carefully calculated piece. "We've identified 3 more potential breakthrough points," David Kim announced, highlighting holographic representations of alien communication networks. Each point was a potential vulnerability, a chance to further erode the Zortak's sense of absolute control. Maria Rodriguez worked on a complex communication matrix, her fingers moving with the precision of a concert pianist. "The quantum disruption algorithm is evolving," she said. "It's learning faster than we anticipated." The Zortak response had been predictable and ultimately futile. Their rigid technological approach left them vulnerable to human creativity. Where the aliens saw only data and mathematical precision, humans saw possibility. A transmission came through from the Proxima B mining colony. The message was coded, but its meaning was clear. Another sector had broken free from alien control. Another group of humans had reclaimed their autonomy. Senior Coordinator Zaxel's communication attempts had become increasingly desperate. The aliens' crystalline form now vibrated with what could only be described as confusion. The humans were no longer behaving like a manageable resource. They had become something else entirely. Psychological warfare is working, David observed. They cannot comprehend our approach. Elena understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about technological victory. It was about challenging the fundamental way the Zortak understood intelligence and resistance. The facility's environmental systems hummed softly. Outside, Europa's icy landscape stretched into infinity, a metaphor for the seemingly impossible challenge they faced. "We're receiving reports from the outer colonies," Maria interrupted. "Coordinated resistance is spreading faster than the Zortak can respond." Each liberated colony was more than a strategic victory. It was a statement. Humans were not going to be controlled, not going to be reduced to resources, not going to be silenced. David pulled up a new holographic display. "Look at this. The quantum algorithm is now predicting Zortak response patterns with 97% accuracy." The implications were profound. Humanity was no longer just resisting. They were anticipating, learning, evolving. A new transmission came through. Encrypted, carefully constructed. It was from a group of human researchers who had been working in complete isolation on a remote research station. "We are ready," the message read. 3 simple words that carried the weight of generations of hope. Elena felt something shift. This was more than a technological battle. This was a fundamental challenge to the nature of control itself. The Zortak had believed their technology made them superior. They had seen humans as predictable, manageable, a resource to be controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Preliminary reports suggested the Zortak were beginning to fracture. Some communication networks were showing signs of internal conflict. The humans' unpredictable approach was creating something the aliens had never encountered: uncertainty. "We're seeing the first signs of systemic breakdown," Maria reported, her voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. David looked up from his console. "It's not just about technology anymore. We're challenging their entire understanding of intelligence." Elena understood the deeper truth. Resistance was more than fighting. It was about imagination, about the ability to see beyond current limitations, about hope. As the first light of Europa's distant sun began to crest over the frozen horizon, the Resistance headquarters came alive with a sense of possibility. They were no longer just fighting. They were reimagining what it meant to be free. The unbreakable spirit of humanity was just beginning to show its true potential. The Zortak primary control world loomed before them, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with technological energy, suspended in the cold void of deep space. Elena Chen studied the holographic representation, her fingers tracing the intricate communication pathways that were now almost completely mapped. "This is our one chance," David Kim said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of everything they had sacrificed. Their plan was audacious, impossible by any traditional military strategy. But impossibility had never stopped humanity before. The quantum communication network they had developed would be their primary weapon. Not a traditional assault, but a complete systemic deconstruction of the Zortak's most fundamental control mechanisms. Maria Rodriguez coordinated the final preparations. Dozens of liberated human colonies were now connected through a network that defied traditional communication protocols. Each group held a piece of the larger strategy, a distributed intelligence that the Zortak could never comprehend. "Preliminary infiltration beginning," Maria announced, her fingers dancing across multiple communication interfaces. The first wave was subtle, microscopic disruptions in the Zortak's quantum communication grid. Each interference point was carefully calculated, designed to create maximum confusion with minimal direct conflict. Senior Coordinator Zaxtel's communication attempts became increasingly frantic. The alien's crystalline form vibrated with what could only be described as a combination of fear and incomprehension. Elena understood the true nature of their strategy. This wasn't about destruction. It was about dismantling a system of control that had oppressed humanity for generations. Quantum disruption sequence at 60%, David reported. They're losing cohesion in their primary communication networks. The attack came from everywhere and nowhere. Human researchers, mining colony workers, agricultural specialists. Each group had been preparing. Each group now played a crucial role in a strategy that defied traditional military thinking. Massive energy surges erupted across the Zortak control world. Communication pathways began to fragment. The alien's seemingly impenetrable technological infrastructure started to crumble from within. "They can't adapt," Maria said, a mixture of disbelief and triumph in her voice. The human resistance had studied the Zortak for years. Their communication protocols, their battle strategies, their fundamental approach to control. And now, they were going to use that knowledge to its fullest potential. A critical communication node began to destabilize. Then another. The Zortak's technology, so dependent on absolute mathematical precision, started to fail in ways the aliens could not predict. "We're seeing complete systemic breakdown," David announced. The attack was more than technological. It was a fundamental challenge to the Zortak's understanding of intelligence and control. Humans were not just resisting. They were reimagining the very concept of technological warfare. Senior Coordinator Zaxtel's final communication was a desperate attempt to reassert control. "Systemic anomaly," the alien's translator announced. Correction protocols initiated. But there would be no correction. No return to the previous system of control. Elena watched as the holographic displays showed the progressive breakdown of the Zortak's primary control infrastructure. Each point of light represented more than a strategic victory. It represented hope. "We are not just fighting," Elena said quietly, her voice carrying to every member of the resistance. "We are proving what it means to be truly free." The final moments of the confrontation were almost anticlimactic. No massive explosions, no dramatic space battles, just a systematic, intelligent dismantling of a system that had believed itself invincible. As the last communication pathways began to fragment, a transmission broke through. Simple, powerful. "We are free," the message read. The Zortak had believed their technology made them superior. They had seen humans as predictable, manageable, a resource to be controlled. They were wrong. The final confrontation was more than a battle. It was a declaration. Humanity would not be controlled, would not be silenced, would not be reduced to anything less than what they could imagine themselves to be. Freedom was not given. It was taken. 6 months after the final confrontation, humanity looked different, not just in the way they organized themselves, but in their very essence. The abandoned research facility on Europa now served as the central hub of a new interstellar coalition. Elena Chen stood at the main viewpoint, watching as ships from liberated colonies arrived, each vessel a testament to human resilience and creativity. "We're more than survivors now," David Kim said, joining her. His hands moved across a holographic display showing the reconstruction efforts. "We're architects of our own destiny." The transformation was profound. Colonies that had once been nothing more than resource extraction points were now centers of innovation. Human ingenuity, previously suppressed by Zortak control, now flourished without limitation. Maria Rodriguez coordinated the communication networks, systems that were now entirely human-designed. No more tracking chips, no more surveillance. Complete autonomy. Reports came in from across multiple star systems. Agricultural colonies developing revolutionary sustainable farming techniques, research stations pushing the boundaries of scientific understanding, mining operations that prioritized both efficiency and human dignity. The quantum communication network they had developed during the resistance became the foundation of a new interstellar infrastructure. It was adaptive, resilient, fundamentally different from the rigid systems that had once controlled them. "We're receiving transmissions from colonies we didn't even know existed," Maria announced, a sense of wonder in her voice. The Zortak's fall had revealed more than just human potential. It had uncovered human colonies that had survived in complete isolation, each developing unique survival strategies. Elena understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just about freedom from oppression. It was about reimagining what human civilization could become. Diplomatic teams began to form. Not military units, but groups of researchers, philosophers, engineers, people dedicated to understanding and learning. The lessons of resistance would not be forgotten, but they would not define the future. "We need to ensure we don't become what we fought against," Elena told a gathering of colony representatives. "Our strength is our ability to adapt, to learn, to grow." The quantum algorithm that had been their primary weapon during the resistance was now being repurposed. Agricultural optimization, medical research, environmental restoration. The tools of survival were becoming the tools of creation. David presented a new initiative. "We're developing communication protocols that prioritize collaborative intelligence," he explained. "Not control, not domination, collaboration." Remnants of Zortak technology were carefully studied, not as conquered spoils, but as potential sources of understanding. Some research teams even included alien scientists who had chosen to stay, fascinated by human approach to innovation. The first interstellar conference was held on Europa. Representatives from different colonies brought not just reports, but possibilities. Agricultural specialists shared breakthrough crop adaptation techniques. Medical researchers presented collaborative healing approaches. Engineers showcased sustainable technology designs. "We are not defined by what was done to us," Maria said during the opening address. "We are defined by what we choose to become." Memorials were established, not to celebrate war, but to remember the cost of freedom. Each colony created its own way of honoring those who had sacrificed. Some through art, some through scientific advancement, some through creating educational systems that would ensure future generations understood the true meaning of resilience. Elena looked at the holographic displays showing the interconnected human colonies. Each point of light represented more than a location. It represented possibility. The quantum communication network pulsed with life, a living testament to human creativity. No longer a weapon, but a bridge, a connection. As the first light of a new day spread across Europa's horizon, humanity looked outward, not with fear, not with the desire to conquer, but with genuine curiosity. The universe was vast, and they were just beginning to explore. "We are not finished," Elena said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. "We are just starting." The story of human resistance was over. The story of human potential was just beginning.